All right, we are live. Cheers, Facebook. Cheers, everyone. I am Amy Mitchell with Houses of Windsor, and this is Virtual Tea Time with Amy. And today, my special guest is Dr. Scott McComas. Did I say your last name right?
You did. You got it
All
right the
right.
first time.
Perfect.
Most people don't get that right the first time, so kudos.
All right, thank you. Dr. Scott and I like calling you Dr. Scott.
Cool. All good. All good.
So Dr. Scott and I have been introduced through email, basically. So we've virtually been introduced by Trevor Gibbs. So shout out to Trevor. Thanks, Trevor.
Thank you, Trevor.
Hopefully you like what you see since you put this together. We'll see. We'll try to make you proud. Okay, so before we get too into it, where are you and what are you drinking?
Where am I? So right now I am in Orlando, Florida.
Okay.
And the question was, what do I do? Mm-hmm. Was that okay?
What are you drinking?
What am I drinking? Yes. So I am drinking a fine blend of wild orange citrus tea today.
Nice.
Yes, it's quite good, quite flavorful, aromatic. So, but I've put it in what I call a tea keg because I didn't have any teacups. So
but if you turn it around,
if I turn it around, yes, there we go.
It's clearly like a beer stein.
It is a beer stein, yeah.
But you get more tea that way.
Well, there you go, right?
And it looks like it's pretty well insulated. I mean, that's pretty good.
It is.
Mug.
It is.
Yeah.
My tea is nice and warm and at exactly the right temperature at which I like to imbibe it.
Very nice. So I am also calling from Orlando, Florida, and I am I'm at a side gig, so I'm in the office there, and I did have a teacup that I had here, like just for doing these videos, and I totally broke it. So
oh no,
it fell out of the cabinet. It was my fault. So it's fine.
No.
That's just the life when you're a tea lady. Teacups get broken. So I'm using a old Jobs mug from 4 years ago or something. I worked for Inmarsat Maritime in Palm Bay.
And what are you drinking?
I'm actually drinking Taifu black tea,
Ooh.
which is a British tea. And that is because, so I sell teas and stuff online on my shop, but I also there's a UK imports business in town in Orlando. Mm-hmm. And when I went last week to pick some stuff up that is not up on my website yet, but it's going to be, basically they had a whole bunch of stuff, and she just kept giving me samples and sales things and everything. So I'm drinking Taifu today. It's my office tea.
Nice.
Yeah. Okay. So, Dr. Scott, what is it that you do?
So glad you asked. Thank you very much. So I am a doctor of psychology, clinical psychology. I also hold a master's in sports psychology. Okay. I am a lifelong nerd and a geek on top of all of that. So since I was a kid, I've loved Star Wars and Star Trek and comic books and sci-fi and superheroes and that whole jazz. And recently, I managed to combine that which I love to do, with my authentic self,
right?
That nerd and geek side. So I am a performance coach and a superhero trainer.
Okay.
I help people step into your inner superhero, which all that is that's the best version of you. Mm-hmm. And you can choose to be that best version of you at any moment in time. And I help people build confidence, find motivation, find purpose, also work on the stories that we all tell ourselves that diminish us. Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. That keep us from being that best version of us. And so I do that through workshops and coaching and seminars and workshops, which are all online now. So I do superhero training. So if you've ever dreamed about being a superhero, that's what I do.
That's awesome. That's pretty cool. So, okay. So I have a question. If you see me writing over here, it's because I'm writing down notes
Got it.
that I want to make sure I want to touch on. So, okay, so you said it was sports psychology, or what do you
Yes.
say? Okay, so what?
Doctorate in sports psychology, master's
Yeah.
in no, doctorate in clinical psychology, master's in sports psychology.
Okay.
There we go.
So how, like, I guess with, I don't know how, deep in the weeds this will get us, but how, like, different, like, how would you describe, like, sports psychology, like, versus, like, the clinical psychology? Like,
Sports psychology is very focused on performance,
okay.
on the mental skills, on improving the mental skills so that you can take your game to the next level, like using your mind and using the mental skills to be able to improve your performance consistently. Now, it's not going to take you, mental sports psychology is not going to take you from someone who's never played basketball before to an Olympic athlete.
Right.
It takes you one or two levels, right? It improves you consistently one or two levels, but the techniques involved are also their life skills, because they focus on, again, it's psychology, but very focused on really being your best self, and or your best performance,
Right.
whatever that looks like at the time.
So, okay, so when you said sports psychology, my first thought was, I'd say more so I have, I guess, a bit of, I don't know what you call it, bias or whatever, but like against sports.
Okay.
So when I hear sports psychology, I'm thinking, oh, because all of the kids who were forced to do something they didn't want to do are coming through with problems as an athlete.
You mean the traumatized ones? Yes. Yes, exactly.
Or that they feel like there's so much intense pressure to be the best that it carries on with them into other aspects of life. And so
people who work in sports psychology, like specifically within sports psychology, will encounter those issues, especially if you're working with kids.
Yeah.
But even when you're not working with kids, depending on the stories, again, the stories that you're running, that impact your performance, that impact you showing up, or you getting, I don't know if you've heard the term in the zone, right? So being in the zone is when you are, you're running on all cylinders. Time seems to slow down. You're fully present in the moment, and you're having a great time, right? It's just, everything is easy and graceful, and, and we've all had those moments. Hopefully we've all had those moments. I've certainly, there are some points where I can pick out in my own, athletics and otherwise, because it doesn't have to be just sports. You can get in the zone in any area of life. So people who work in sports psychology will come across those, what you just mentioned, often, and they're issues that if they impede your performance, right? If they impede you from being your best self from your performance, because we have kids. I mean, I've worked with kids who, their parents were so demanding, like, and it was just so heartbreaking to see the effect on the kids, their own psychology, right? They burned them out of sports, right? And then, or they struggled with motivation because they're not doing it for the fun, for the joy of the sport
because
anymore.
They don't want to.
So those issues exist, and we do, I'm not sure if I should say we anymore, because I really don't practice sports psychology. I practice sports psychology in the context of the whole superhero training bit. Right. Which, and that can cover, that can cover sports, but currently I don't have anybody who I am specifically coaching in sports, like, specifically in your context. I'm more on that life coaching side of things. I don't like to use the term life coach, because
there's I know, it's like, I feel like the people who are already, like, I guess, in the world, like, I just call it like the personal development world. I feel like we're all cool with it. But but the other people that aren't quite there yet on their journey, there's like a little bit of a stigma.
There is a little bit of a stigma. I mean, there's a stigma too. I think there's a perception that psychology itself, there's a stigma against psychology, just basic mental health.
Right.
I think there's a stigma towards, but yes. So it's like, I don't like to just say life coaching, but life coaching seems to be the term that most people go, oh yeah, I know what you do.
Right. Once
Okay,
you're, yeah. Yeah, so I've got a better idea. So okay, so you mentioned sports that you did. So what sports did you play when you played
So
sports?
growing up, I was a soccer player.
Okay.
And in high school, I ran cross country.
Mm-hmm.
And then in college, I played volleyball.
Oh, okay.
And now I run. I mean, I'm a runner. I've always been a runner. Running's kind of been the thing that I've kind of, it's like you throw on a pair of tennis shoes and you go, right? It's the lazy man's way to stay in shape in a lot of ways. Like throw on tennis shoes, go. Don't have to worry about equipment or anything like that. But I still do play. Like I love to play baseball. I love to play football. I love to play.
Okay.
You know, I've played. Like we have a family football game, for instance. Like every Thanksgiving, I have a fairly large family.
Oh, that's fun.
Every Thanksgiving, we all gather in Washington, D.C. and we have the Turkey Bowl, which is now 37 years.
Oh my God.
38 years.
That's amazing.
Yeah, you know, it's really great. So that's the football game I play in every year. And that's then I usually pull something, a hamstring or a groin gets Now
is that what, touch football or whatever?
Oh,
like
totally. Yeah, there's no
Yeah. You guys aren't suited up.
No. Yeah, no concussions. Like I did my dissertation on youth concussions, youth sport concussions.
Yeah.
And I learned a lot more about concussions than I really wanted to.
Really?
Yeah.
And had you had some when you were a kid playing sports?
Well, only when my mom dropped me on my head those 3 or 4 times.
But that wasn't part of the
Yeah,
sport.
well, and it explains a lot, right? It explains a lot about but no, actually, as a kid, I got a concussion. There had to have been a mild concussion in there when I reached down to grab a football that someone had overthrown the football, and so I ran to grab it. And just as I reached down to grab it, someone else came up and tried to kick it, and they kicked it right into my face, right into my eye.
Yeah.
And I had to stay in a darkened room for a week with no movement. Yeah.
Whoa. Wow. A whole week?
A whole week, yes. Again, it explains much about who I am and my personality.
And that's when your superhero capabilities kicked in, right?
Exactly. That's when
is that like what that's gonna say the origin story?
My origin story.
I don't know superhero stuff real well, but I know that much. That's great. So I have to ask, since you mentioned volleyball and you played it in college, but you didn't play it before college? How does that work?
I started playing it in high school.
Okay.
But for me, I didn't hit puberty till I was 17.
Okay.
So up until the age of 17, I was at my tallest, I was 5'2" and weighed $105, soaking wet.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. And so I started to learn how to play in high school, but didn't make my high school team because, I would have had to have become a really good setter because I couldn't reach the top of the net. I couldn't hit real well at that particular time. By the time I got to college, though, I was 6'2".
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That's nuts.
So at that point, I was able to hit the ball.
Yeah.
I was able to jump over the net and hit the ball. And so, and I had gotten a lot better.
Wow. So what is that like, if you can recall, from going from 5'2" to 6'2" in such a short period of time? Like, did it change your whole outlook on life? Like the way people looked at you?
Well, yeah. I mean, there was I had such an inferiority complex up until that point. Like I had my middle brother was 5 inches taller than me. So anytime we took a family picture, right, there'd be my mom, my dad, me, my brother, and then my other brother, who was just a little bit shorter than I was at that particular time. It was just I was at least embarrassed by it, right?
You felt it.
Just being the smallest one and struggling with I was never popular in high school. I was, and occasionally picked on, and
Okay.
the story in high school, like I don't have very good memories of it, and it's just like I don't care to ever go back, right? That's not one of those that fortunately,
Yep. I
um,
hear you.
I don't have to go back. So, I mean, I made my peace with it and all, but at the same time, those weren't like, I look back on those years and it was just like those were it felt like such a struggle.
Yeah.
And so, so going from 5'2" to 6'2" was just like,
oh my gosh. Yeah. That's like amazing. It's like a dream come true.
It was, it was. And it is, I have to say, it is very nice to be like, I'm very happy with being the height that I am, right? Being
right. You're very grateful.
Yes, I am very grateful to count my blessings in that regard. But it's like the universe, God, the divine, whatever you want to call it, it has a sense of humor.
Right.
Because my mom kept telling me, you're going to grow. There's no way you're not going to grow because, all of your uncles are 6 foot or above. Your grandfather was 6 foot or above. At least everybody on your dad's side's at least 5'10".
Right.
Something is going to happen.
Like way down. Yeah. So are you taller than your brothers now, or
We're
what's the
all
height?
the same height.
Really?
We all ended up 6'2". It was like,
that's hilarious.
That works.
All right. So you're all equals.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
That's really cool. Yeah, I was just going to comment when you brought up, or we're talking about high school, and to say, I definitely don't feel like revisiting it. And I described to people that I was neither popular nor unpopular. I was just there.
Yeah.
and had, I guess I'll just say that in retrospect, I definitely had anxiety, but like nobody quite, whatever. No one was getting diagnosed with that. I graduated in 2004. No one's, messing with that. At least not in Yorktown, Indiana. I'm from Indiana. So yeah. So I was not real comfortable in my skin in high school, but nobody bothered me for it. I had like my small group of friends, and that was fine. But yeah, so like I said, I wasn't bothered, but I wasn't special either.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. But now
I was about to say
so far ago.
I was about to say, did that change? Has that changed? When did that change for you? When did you finally get comfortable with yourself?
Good question. I think it probably was starting in college, like a lot of people. As far as feeling, I guess, like fully myself, honestly, in the last few years.
Yeah.
So it's been more of a recent thing, and that's why I talk about like the personal development journey, whatever you want to call it, is, I am, I'm not ashamed, and I openly admit to people, I'm like, yeah, I have a therapist, I have a psychiatrist, I have I don't care. I've been to Tony Robbins with my business coach. Like, I'm in different like mastermind groups, like whatever. I think it's all like, it doesn't have to be just one thing or the other. I feel like it's great to have like an all, I guess, holistic approach.
I love that. Well, yeah. I have never I've been on a 30-year personal development journey so far.
Okay,
so I've been doing this whole personal development thing for 30 years, including going to grad school for 10 years to get 2 degrees in psychology. But what what I've learned for me is like, there's never been like, I've always been looking for the answer, and I've never found the answer. What I have found are a tool here or a skill there that like, oh yeah, this works for me. So I'll incorporate that into, and what happens is I built my own system. And my own, like, I know I need community. For instance, I'm naturally an introvert, but I need community. And if I'm not in community for an extended length of time, I get cranky, or I get, I isolate, and that's not good for me.
Right.
But so the journey has been all about finding and creating my own system, which is what, like, that's my philosophy. It's like, I did Tony Robbins as well.
Awesome.
I did UPW. Did you do Unleash?
Yeah, in November.
Yeah.
I was
Did they have the
the
firewalk?
huh?
Firewalk?
Yeah, yeah, yep. I'm a firewalker. Cool
Yay!
moss. All of it.
I don't know about you, but it was so anticlimactic for me.
Um, I was there with my business coach who's like super full of energy. So like I was like, I was good with that, but I guess for me, it actually was, we had a bit of excitement in our line because you know how they said that like the people at the beginning of the firewalk would kind of check to see if you looked like you were actually ready to do it and they'd pull you
Yes.
aside if they think you look nervous or whatever.
Yeah.
So a girl right in front of us got pulled aside and we're like, oh, they're serious. Like they really, and it's like, I hope I pass. I don't know what I'm supposed to look like. So, and we were like, oh, sweet. Like the coals were starting to get a little darker or whatever. And then we hear him go, hot coals. And like, so right before we go, they dumped the wheelbarrow of hot coals on the firewalk. So they were like, oh no. And so so I don't know. We just did it, and I think I went first. I honestly can't remember, like as far as before Sherry or not. But yeah, all I could remember was I definitely was doing what he said to picture the end, and like I actually think what was it? I think I forgot to do the cool moss thing because what was it that we were what were we chanting in line? Whatever we were chanting in line and clapping for, it was like I just kept going with that. I forgot to switch my chant.
Right.
But so whatever we were supposed to do, whatever we were doing, I did that. And then I tell people like literally the most I felt was that like maybe I had stepped on like a cigarette butt like that was just left on the ground. Like I felt like a tinge of it at some point, but it wasn't like walking on a ton of them. I just like barely felt it. So yeah, it was bizarre.
Yeah, it's definitely experience. I was disappointed. I found it anticlimactic because I thought we were going to walk a lot longer. Like I was expecting like a 25, 30 yard.
You call that anticlimactic. I call that a relief. I was like, good. I was like, great. They're not that long.
Like it was like 6 steps. I'm like, this is not.
I know. That's what was great. And like, I'm watching people in front of me. I'm like, oh wow, this is like just bigger steps.
I understand why they did it that way, and I understand like the several hour process that they did to get you mentally ready.
Yeah, I know
that.
Yes.
And I thought it was great. I did think it was great, though. But in the back of my mind, there was just like.
But that is so funny. I love that. Cracks me up. Yeah, you wanted it longer. That's hilarious.
I'm not sure. Okay, so here's the thing. I'm not sure I wanted it longer.
Okay, you thought it would be.
But I thought it was going to be longer. And so there was that piece of my brain that was like, oh, man, it wasn't longer than that. Oh. It was like, but and then the bigger part of my brain just kind of looked at that piece and went, shut up.
Right.
We just walked across hot coals. We're good.
Right, yeah, you're good. Yeah,
we haven't burned anything. We're fine.
Right. Oh my gosh. I was amazed at like I guess I have a great appreciation for processes and efficiencies. And I was like, I was thinking in the arena, I was like, how are we all going out and doing this at the same time? This doesn't make sense. It just seems like madness. And somehow they got us out in an organized fashion all the way out there. Like it wasn't really that close to the arena. And we're like all walking barefoot. And then there's what was it, like 40 different like sets of hot coals? Like
there's 40 lines because
they spread us out and I just couldn't believe. And then we go by, like you go by so fast and then you go back in and I was like, wow.
Done.
Because what? It was like 13 or 14,000 people right there. Like
you had, we had 6,000 at mine.
Oh, okay. We were UPW Miami at like the beginning of November in 2019.
So I was UPW Fort Lauderdale 2014.
Oh, okay. All right. Cool. Well, you're newer to this, or I guess you've been in this longer than I have. But so I'm like new to the whole. I was brand new to Tony Robbins stuff. I had never watched anything about him. I knew of the name loosely, like I've heard of it, but I never watched anything. And it was funny to go and see the people who are like Tony fanatics who have been several times, or there was like one guy who had been watching his stuff on YouTube forever, and then he finally decided to go. And he was a kid, like I'm not a kid. He was like my age, but, or maybe a little bit younger, but it was funny because we were talking in line, like at lunch, and he's like, oh, wow, like you didn't know anything about him. And he's like, I'm so jealous that like you got to come in like blind and this was your first like Tony Robbins experience. And I was like,
Ah.
yeah, I was like, oh, I guess that is kind of cool. So yeah, it was funny because like people who had known him or been before, they're just like, oh, it's your first time. Like it's so special. So it was very interesting meeting all the different types of people that are there.
Yeah, no, they can get really passionate. They can get really passionate about him. Well, about him. I mean, he's got a lot of good stuff. I really, I like his message on the whole. I really do like his message. You know, I've got my own little picadillos with some of his stuff, but you know, it's not. Again, it's like I took things from what I learned there and incorporated it, like the power move, right? I do something which is similar to that in my workshop. It's like we do a superhero pose because the physical representation is, you know, the physical can affect the mental. So that physical manifestation will create biological changes in your body and in your brain.
Right.
And you can start feeling more confident, or you can start feeling more empowered. So, you know, it's just a similar thing. Like if the power move is a very, you know, I love a lot of his neuro-linguistic programming work.
Yes.
But then like I what I do recommend for most people is try a bunch of different things, because you don't know you have to find what's going to resonate with you. Once you found it, or if you find something, if you find your answer, great, you know, it's fantastic. But the whole process of growth means always exploring, always changing, always moving. And so, you know, there are certain systems like, so now I've done, you know, I've been to grad school. I've kind of done the whole basis in grounded in the root foundation of psychological theory and psychological work. I've done Tony Robbins. I've done Landmark. I don't know if you're familiar with Landmark.
Oh, I've heard of that. Yes. But I heard of it several years ago before I was on this journey, and someone told me it was like a business cult or like not a business cult, but basically
It's not a business cult. It's
not a business, but yeah,
it's not even a cult. It's not even a cult. I understand why some people call it a cult.
Right.
It's not a cult. It's actually hugely beneficial. Like I would recommend anybody do the forum. But it's that in your journey, it's your journey, and explore. You know, read books, read different books. Like I have my set of books that I've read that I can, you know, I like to share with people. Like, you know, the Surrender Experiment, The Power of Now, you know, Mindset, The New Psychology of Success. That's another big one that I love because I'm big into growth mindset work. But in the end, it's you know, I'm a firm believer in you read the book or you do the experience at exactly the right time that you need to do the experience or read the book. Right. Because there's something that's the right time for you to get whatever piece of knowledge or that you need to get.
I like that. Yeah, because for me, it's like, you know, Tony Robbins was great, but it's like so much like jam-packed into 4 days. And then you like walk away, you're like, I can't hold on. Like, I can't like implement all this or like run, you know, do all these things that we just learned about. So it's kind of like, what really like is going to stick with me and work for me.
Right.
And then as I'm in different groups, like I mentioned, like my business coach, she has like kind of like a mastermind group and we meet on Wednesdays virtually. And so that's really beneficial in another way. And then, like I mentioned, I have a therapist. I had to call with her this morning. But so it's just like you kind of get, you know, like you said, just kind of tools or, you know, just different things from different. So I'm more of a people getting things from people because I have never been much of a reader. I have books that I am supposed to be reading, like from some of my classes. You know, it's like every group that I'm in, they're like, read this book. And
read
like,
this. Yeah.
I'm like, well, I'll buy it and I'll read like a couple of pages and then I'll fall asleep. So,
So
Yeah.
there, I mean, you already understand where, where you get most of your learning from.
Right.
You like that face-to-face,
Yes.
or Zoom to Zoom,
Yeah.
experience
Right. Screen. Yeah.
these days.
Face to screen.
Face to screen. Yes, exactly.
Yeah. And then I also am a really big podcaster. So I used to always try, when I'm referencing things, I used to always try to remember which one. I'm like, now I just look like, I don't know, one of my podcasts. I listen to
One of those
too many. Yeah. I
hundreds of
was like,
podcasts that
yeah. I'm like, I don't know who said it, but I'm like, but on whatever podcast, they had an expert on such and such. And this is
Right.
what they said.
Right.
And take whatever I tell you with a grain of salt because I can't identify my sources. But yeah, so I guess that's another way. It's like I'm still getting it from another person, but I have to like hear it. It has to feel. Yeah, I'm just not great with sitting down and reading.
Right.
So I've got my other ways that I get it.
But, whatever works for you. I
right,
mean,
right. But I have coaches who read the books,
and then they tell you what
then
they've
they can
read.
share
Right.
with me like the big things that that I should know.
Then they give you the Cliff Notes version, which is okay.
Exactly.
So here are the 3 big takeaways from this book.
Right.
This is what you should know.
Yes.
It's all you need to know.
Yeah. So yeah. So that's that. But so tell me. Well, first of all, before I move to the next question, that's still going to be kind of related.
Okay.
Do you have anything else you want to say on your business that I didn't touch on? Yeah.
Not really. I mean, the whole, if you have questions about the superhero trainer thing or about, part of this, there's a couple of reasons why I like this theme. Like one, no one else is really doing it, right? I really haven't seen anybody else kind of playing in this space, this exact space that I'm working in. So that's nice. No competition,
right?
At least, or being able to distinguish myself, right?
Right. I understand. I'm like a traveling tea room, like nobody.
Yeah.
When you're your own thing.
Exactly. But I think there's a perception out there that personal development is broccoli. It's good for you. And this is for most people, not for the people who actually like broccoli. Because for you guys, this analogy doesn't work. For people who are like either neutral or on broccoli, it's like broccoli. It's good for you. You should do it, but it's broccoli.
Right.
It's effort. It's not going to really taste good. There's just this automatic resistance to personal development, which I don't think that needs to be the case. Now, there's always going to be, in order to grow, you have to push that comfort zone.
Right.
There's no avoiding that, right? That's where the growth occurs.
Right.
And it doesn't have to be broccoli.
Right.
You can have some fun while doing it. And that's what I like to bring to personal development is personal and or professional development, because it is both, is that theme of fun. Like I stand for hope, inspiration, leadership, and fun. Those are the things I want to bring to my work. And in terms of being able to help other people, those are my main focuses. When I show up, I want to be hopeful, I want to be inspirational, I want to be a leader, and I want to have fun, because it's just no fun. I mean, it's just, what's the point if you're not going to have fun? And so superheroes is a way of kind of doing that. It kind of breaks down. I want to say it breaks down people's automatic barriers, right? It's like, personal development, right? Where it's like superheroes.
Yeah, you're like, okay, I'm listening.
Yeah.
Like, what's this?
Yeah. Because it can be fun. This whole process can be fun if you choose, if you allow it to be, even through the struggles and the growth. It can be. So I guess that's all I wanted to say.
Yeah. Well, I feel like that's an excellent point, because I can say from, I guess, the other side of it, because I'm not a life coach, from the other side of things is, I guess, like, my message for people out there that are hesitant for like the personal growth or whatever, however way you seek it. Like it's not that it's not only that it's not just broccoli, like it can be fun, but I feel like when you do push through those barriers, like it's not even always super uncomfortable, but it's like can be very rewarding and kind of exciting when you're like, oh my God, I didn't even know that like limiting belief was buried deep down. Like I didn't know that's what's been informing my behavior.
Oh man, those aha moments are so great.
Exactly.
It's
Yeah. Yeah.
like, well, at the same time, they're like, why didn't I see that before?
You're like, this should be obvious, but you're like, wow, like that was just so like, yeah, just like built in from
Right?
long ago that
Right?
you don't even think about it. And then when you do think about it, you're like, I don't really believe that. I don't think that has to be true.
Right.
Yeah. So, so excellent point that, yeah, people should not be afraid of it, and it's not broccoli. There is fun, and there are amazing aha moments, and then obviously then you have like you just start feeling better. Like you start feeling more like your true self is how I would explain it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Your best
Yeah.
self, that
Yes.
best
Your best.
version of you.
Yes. So, okay, so I want to ask you, what is your like special interest or obsession?
Okay.
And I know that you said it ended up being sort of related to your business, so let's have it.
Yeah, well, before like a year ago, if we'd have done this a little over a year ago, I would have been my title would have been I still would have been a performance coach, but I was working with businesses and people to really help improve their performances, like just straight up, like straight up with the psychology. And if you'd had asked me then over a year ago, I would have said, okay, yeah, my secret thing is like, superheroes. I love superheroes. I'm a sci-fi nerd and a sci-fi geek. And I've now combined those, right? So now I'm incorporating pretty much, which is for me, it's been amazing being able to. I finally figured out what I wanted to be when I grew up. It took me 48 years, but I finally figured out what I wanted to be when I grew up. Superhero trainer.
Great.
So there's that nerdy geeky side, but if you wanted me to pull something out of that, like, so there's right behind me, like I've got a green screen right here. So you can't see, you can't see the background, but behind me, there's a bookshelf. And on that bookshelf are like, I was a fan, like when I was 12, I became a fan of like the Transformers toys.
Oh yeah.
And so on the bookshelf behind me, past the screen, there's a bookshelf full. It's got about 60.
Okay, sorry. I didn't mean to laugh like that.
So I collect them, right?
I wasn't expecting that number.
I've probably got a collection of about 700 or 800.
Oh, really?
Yes, a lot of them are in boxes right now.
So, like, how big are they? Are they all different sizes?
They're all different sizes. So I've got, so I can actually show. Well, I mean, I've got the one. I've got a couple that have been, that are kind of the ones on my desk, which are kind of, they're the. We've got another little one there.
Yeah.
But then I've got a couple which are,
right, the big ones,
1.5 feet, 2 feet tall.
Right.
Which I don't have any of those in back there, but stored I've got those. But yeah, they range all different sizes.
That's awesome. So I've got my follow-up questions ready for you.
Okay.
So first, I have to say that I have never seen like pretty much any superhero movie, none of the Marvel stuff, none of like the whatever things. Like I haven't seen like any of them. I don't know if Guardians of the Galaxy count, but like none. I've seen none of that. So
it counts.
in my mind, they're all one thing.
Okay.
So that being said, are you like more movies or like comics, or like how does this like? How do you dive into it? And like, because for me, it's like, oh, I just group them all together. But is it that you actually like all of the things related, or what's your favorite part of it, kind of thing?
That's a excellent question. It's like where to start. Like, so if you're someone who wants to get into superheroes, for instance,
that's one of my questions usually is, if say you're like someone like me, you have no idea. What
if
is
you
the
want to
in?
get
What's the
into
entry?
superheroes, I would suggest the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Okay.
There are 22 movies in the Marvel,
Oh
22 or 24.
That's how many.
You do them
I
one at a
knew
time.
there.
You take
I
them
knew
slow.
no, but I knew there've been a lot. But like since they're always just like kind of in the background for me, I don't pay attention when they're coming out. I
Yeah,
had no idea it's been that many.
there are quite a few, but it tells a story, right? There's an
Right.
overarching story
Right.
that gets told.
Okay. So you do want to start from the beginning.
You want to start from the beginning, sure.
Okay.
So you start
Okay.
with Iron Man, right? You start with the first one. That was the
Okay.
first MCU movie.
I might have
was Iron
actually
Man.
seen parts of that. That sounds familiar.
Because that it's easy. I think it's easier to digest the movies, right? Because when you get into the comic book lore, you can get really minutia. Like there are folks out there who are like, I consider myself a nerd and a geek, and but there are people out there who are like they endlessly debate like minutia pieces of comic book issue 174 that was in August of 2012 that referenced this little piece of information. Right, it can get really detailed, and I'm not that level, right?
Okay.
I enjoy I enjoy the comic books. I don't buy comic books nowadays, but I will pick up graphic novels. I'll pick up the graphic novels on occasion and just read through story arcs.
Okay.
So I don't collect comic books or anything like that. But there is also like, by reading the comic books, you get a much better, not much better, but there's a deeper understanding, a richer understanding of the history of the characters and how they relate, and especially where you start. But it can take time, and there's a lot. There's so much material out there. Right. So for instance, I never really did. So there are a couple of major comic book companies. Like one is Marvel, one is DC.
Okay.
And they had, like, growing up, I always tended towards, like, if you told me like what were your favorite comic books, they were the DC comic books.
Okay.
What are your favorite cartoons? It's the DC cartoons. But if you ask me, what's your favorite movies, I would say Marvel does better movies.
Okay.
Right. So, there's a lot to that question.
Right.
There's
so I'm trying to help. So how do comic books work as far as when are they like issued? Is it like a monthly
every month?
thing? It is every month. Wow.
So they get released every month, and the comic books themselves, they'll like be a run. So there'll be an author and an artist, and they'll work together for maybe 2 years, 3 years. Usually that's about that. From what I understand, is about the length of a run of a comic book. So the Amazing Spider-Man, or well, maybe not. That's but there'll be a comic book title. And it'll run for 2 to 3 years, and they'll cover a bunch of story arcs, and then they'll stop. And then another writer and another artist will take over. And start creating new arcs. But they even go to the point where, like, they have these plots where the universes are completely rewritten.
Oh, wow.
Start again.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Okay.
So the universe is destroyed, or the universe, everybody forgets everything that goes on. And so you're starting from scratch.
Okay.
So they do these reboots. They call them the reboots. They reboot universes quite often, and they reboot characters quite often. And then they kill characters, and then they're dead for a few years, and then they come back.
And then they come back.
So it's convoluted. There's it's very convoluted.
Right.
But like there are certain storylines that are like the Crisis on Infinite Earth storyline. Like you can get the graphic novel for that, and that's a great one. Or the Flashpoint storyline, which involves the superhero the Flash. There's one for Green Lantern. It's the one. It's the Ring War. There's all this. And if you just pick up and reading, I would say you don't have to like start at the beginning. You can start reading and pick up the relationships and the characters, and it's really pretty artwork. I mean, some of the artwork in there is just amazing.
So do you have to like go buy it every month at the store, or can you like subscribe to it like a magazine and they mail it?
You can do both.
Oh, okay.
So you can subscribe. I believe you can get it mailed to you, or you can order it from a comic book store. to pick it up. Or like, so for instance, with the digital age nowadays, like DC has their own like streaming service. And if you subscribe to that streaming service, you actually get access to all of their comics. Like, I don't know, it may be like a year, like it may be like from a year ago, like, but anything before that, like anything before a year, you have access to those comic books.
But you have access online? Like it's not paper? Okay.
Yeah, you have access online to the comics.
Okay. Do people mainly, like, do people still like paper comics? Or is it like, if they just want the story, they will do it on the computer?
There's a whole industry, economic industry around comic books because they're collectibles, right? There are certain comic books, like, you know, if you find Action Comics #1, like a mint edition Action Comics #1, where Superman appeared for the first time in 1938, it's worth a couple $1 million or something like that. I don't know how much it's worth, but it's worth a pretty penny.
Okay.
And people, you know, comic books had their, like, there was a point where they were really valuable, but then they the market kind of bottomed out, kind of like baseball cards.
Right.
But they're still collected. They're still, you know, they're still traded. They still have value. And, you know, especially if you like go to comic book conventions and get them signed by the artist or the author, you know, you can raise their value. So, you know, they're collectibles. They're, you know.
That makes sense. Yeah. Well, okay. So, really quick, because I don't want to keep you forever, but I have to ask you the final question.
The final question.
Yeah. Well, or I guess it's the second to last question, but it's
Drum roll, please.
Okay. Do you have any ghost or alien stories? Anything that something happened to you or someone you know that cannot be explained?
Yes.
Yeah. All right.
There was, so my grandfather passed away 2 days before September 11th. So he passed away September 9th, 2001. And I can't remember how long afterward it was, but there was a point like a few years later where my parents and my grandmother were eating at a restaurant and they were meeting some friends, and the friends came in and they sat down and they had dinner and it was great. And then a few days later, one of the people who walked in was talking to my mom and said, "So I want to know, but right before we got there was this older gentleman sitting next to you. Who was he?" And my mom was like, "There was nobody sitting next to us at all." And she says, "Can you describe him?" And he said, "Sure." And he just started describing my grandfather. And she said, "Did he look like this?" And he was like, yeah, that's him.
Whoa.
So
that's a good one. That's crazy.
We've had, like, on my other side, like, there were my grandmother's house on my dad's side. There were instances where there were in one of the bedrooms, like there were one time my aunt woke up and felt kind of something weird going on, and there was a depression at the bed, like someone was sitting there. And so there are a few stories like that. And then of course there's the I guess the last one is, and this was kind of, I'm 10 and my mom lost her keys. Like we're late. We're like, I have to get to soccer practice. I can't remember if I had to get to soccer practice or whatever, but we're late. And mom is frantically running around. We're trying to find the keys. And we've looked everywhere. Like we've checked the same place 6 times, the kitchen 6 times. And finally my mom's like, okay, St. Anthony, who is the patron of finding lost things, the patron saint of lost things. St. Anthony, who is the patron saint of the family. Please help us find these keys. We really need them. We really need to get some. So fine. Okay, great. So another 5 minutes pass and we're looking, and suddenly I'm like just looking at the edge of the counter. There they are. Like they didn't just pop into existence, right? It's like I turned away and you know, we're looking and
right. Yeah. But they were not there 1 minute and then they were there.
We've both looked there 10 times and they weren't there, and now they're there.
That's really cool.
Take it as you will.
Yeah. So in these stories, is anybody creeped out after? Like, or is everyone just like, oh, huh?
We were very thankful. No, it was like,
Well, you were thankful, but like, I mean, the depression on the bed, or
well,
like that your grandpa was at dinner,
the
anybody get
depression,
creeped out?
the depression on the bed, like for me, the depression on the bed freaks me out. That kind of
Yeah.
stuff. Seeing, grandpa, not so much, because that's
Not so
more of
much.
a
Yeah, that's just kind of like, oh, that's cute. Like, that's kind of
comforting
neat.
thing.
Yeah, that
That
he's around.
that
Yeah.
he's around and he's looking after grandma. So
Hmm.
that didn't really, that was cool. I thought that
Yeah.
was, um, but then there's the story of my grandmother who's in hospice, and
Hmm.
she's in this house, in that same house where the
Oh,
depression,
yeah. Hmm.
and she's a few days away from
Hmm.
passing, and she's telling my dad, okay, so I was visited by a little boy and he was telling me, don't go into the basement. There are some really not good entities in
Yeah.
the basement. Don't go
Hmm.
down there. Don't go down there today. And that was like
Yeah, that's really spooky. Oh my
but
gosh.
there are like there are several more type
Hmm.
stories like that,
Wow.
in the family. So
Wow. Well, so I'm gonna have to have you on again just for ghost stories. I didn't
just
know
for those
nobody
stories.
ever has like if anybody ever has one, it's like they barely have one. So I'm like, oh my gosh, you've got too many. So yeah, gotta be back
You
on for that.
share.
I know, I love it. That's awesome. Well, thank you for being on. My real final question is, do you have any final words or questions?
Choose the moment.
There you
Be here in the moment. Be here now. Choose to be your best
go. Hmm.
and be empowered by
Yeah.
it.
And if you are having trouble with that, give Dr. Scott a call.
Sure.
Yeah.
HeroYou2.com.
Yes.
HeroYou, the number 2.com. That's my website. In fact,
Perfect.
you can see
Yeah, I
that.
was like, I need to put it. I'll put it in the
Yeah.
show notes or whatever.
And
Yeah.
we'll put my email address in there as well.
Okay. Yeah.
So that
Absolutely.
if people want to reach out and contact me
Yeah.
directly, they can.
Absolutely. Awesome.
Awesome.
Well,
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming on. Thanks, Trevor, for setting this up.
Thank you, Trevor.
So I am Amy Mitchell with Houses of Windsor. This is Virtual Tea Time with Amy, and my special guest was Dr. Scott McComas. And yes, cheers. And thank you everyone who watched live and whoever watches into infinity, because it's going on YouTube. So we'll be up there forever, or until the internet shuts down.
Hopefully forever.
Yeah, right. Okay, well, thank you so much. Have a great evening. Bye.